You won't be staying here anyway, Ethan said, his voice clipped, almost rehearsed. I stood there staring into the wardrobe bare. No sweaters, no slacks, not even the coat I'd worn every winter since Harold passed. Just empty hangers swinging like wind chimes in a silent room. My hands trembled, but I didn't let them see. The room was different, painted over in pale gray, the curtains replaced. The quilt I'd sewn by hand was gone. My reading lamp, my framed photo of Ethan in second grade. I turned, slowly trying to hide the shakiness in my knees. Where are my things? Brittany leaned against the doorframe, holding a cup of tea she didn't offer. We packed up most of it while you were gone. Figured you'd want a fresh start. The rest's in the garage. In the garage? She shrugged. It's all labeled. We had to make room. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed I'd slept in for the last 15 years, his gaze fixed on his phone. We thought a care facility might be easier for you, he said. You know, with full-time help, activities, people your age. I didn't answer. Couldn't. I'd only been gone 2 weeks. A fall and a short stay at the rehab wing. I'd taken the taxi home myself because Ethan said he was tied up with meetings. I thought I was coming home. I lowered myself onto the edge of a chair, careful of the ache in my side. The room felt colder than it should. Or maybe I did. Ethan stood brushing invisible lint from his sleeve. We can talk more after dinner. Brittany's making her risotto. Risotto. That's what they were worried about. Dinner? Presentation? Not the fact that they'd cleared out my life like last season's decor. They left the room. I stayed, and when the house grew quiet, I pulled myself up and made my way toward the garage slowly, carefully, my cane, tapping across the hardwood. I needed to see what they'd done with the rest of me. I used to wake before sunrise, even after retirement. The house would be quiet, still holding its breath before the noise of the day. I'd wrap myself in that old maroon shawl, fraying at the edges, but soft as memory, and make a cup of coffee just the way Harold liked it. Strong, a little sweet. Outside the kitchen window, the bird feeder would sway slightly, as if the wrens and finches knew I was coming. I'd tap the glass and whisper, "Morning," like they were old friends. Some mornings I'd sit on the back porch, knees wrapped in a blanket, and just listen. The trees always spoke kinder than most people. After Harold passed, I found quiet comfort in routine. It gave the grief somewhere to go. Ethan was just 15 when his father collapsed in our driveway. I still remember the scream, mine, ripping through the neighbor's yard as the ambulance lights stained the front steps red. We got through it. Or I got us through it. I took the weekend job at the bakery, kept the school position during the week. I packed Ethan's lunches with little sticky notes. "You've got this. Proud of you." Finish strong. He never mentioned them, but he never threw them away either. This house, every inch of it, held those years. The kitchen tiles we installed together when we couldn't afford a contractor. The pencil marks on the hallway wall still faintly showing how fast Ethan grew. It wasn't just a house. It was proof that I'd survived. The fall happened just outside the pantry. One misstep, one slick sock on wood. I reached for the counter, missed, and the floor rushed up like it had been waiting. The pain was sharp, but the fear was sharper. I remember lying there staring at the ceiling fan, wondering if anyone would find me before the coffee went cold. But someone did. And now, standing in a garage that smelled of cardboard and forgotten things, I stared at boxes labeled Mom, Misk, and knew something had already broken long before I hit the floor. The boxes in the garage were half taped, half open. Some weren't even mine. I found an old photo of Harold, tucked behind a set of mismatched bowls, our wedding picture, the one from the courthouse. I had worn a yellow blouse that day. He'd said it made me look like sunlight. But the frame was cracked. I brought it back inside, tucked it under my arm like a secret, and walked past the guest room. My room. The door was ajar. Brittany's silk robe hung on the back. Her curling iron sat on the vanity next to a jar of expensive face cream I didn't recognize. In the bathroom, my perfume was gone. The one Ethan used to say smelled like his childhood. In its place sat a collection of glass bottles, labels in French silver lids, nothing that felt like home. The closet had been emptied of my cardigans, my slacks, my winter boots. In their place, Brittany's dresses, bold prints, high heels in boxes stacked neatly. I found Ethan in the kitchen scrolling on his phone. "Did you move my things from the bathroom?" He didn't look up. We had to make space. "You weren't here." I waited, but nothing else came. No apology. No explanation. Just that. Later that night, I stood at the top of the stairs, not meaning to eavesdrop, but too tired to walk all the way back down. The house was dim. Brittany's voice floated up from the living room. "It's not like she's staying. She just doesn't know yet." Silence. Then the sound of a glass being set on a coaster. "She's better off at Oak Ridge anyway. There's staff, there's other people like her. This house isn't built for, well, you know." I turned back toward the hallway. My knees ached. My throat burned. They were speaking about me like I wasn't already part of the past. I stepped into my room and sat quietly on the edge of the bed. I didn't cry, but I did reach for the photo of Harold, set it gently beside the lamp, and started folding the one sweater I had left. When you spend most of your life giving, it's hard to notice when people stop saying thank you. I used to think that was love, quiet, unquestioned, endless. When Ethan got accepted into college, I sold my car the next week. It wasn't fancy, but it got me everywhere I needed to go. I told him the engine had given out, but the truth was simpler. His tuition bill had come, and I couldn't stand the thought of him walking away from his dream because of money. So I took the bus for 5 years and said nothing. When his wedding came, I delayed my retirement. The school was cutting positions, but they offered me 1 more year if I stayed part-time. I said yes without thinking. Every paycheck went toward the venue deposit and Brittany's designer gown. I told everyone it was our gift. I never mentioned that it cost me the chance to rest. When their baby was born, I gave them the house. Not all of it, just the deed under one condition, that I could live there always. My lawyer had warned me to be careful, but I trusted my son more than the law. I thought I'd secured my place in their lives. I didn't realize I'd just signed it away. For years, I cooked dinner every night, even when my hands shook from arthritis. I cleaned bottles, folded onesies, and learned to rock a baby at 2 in the morning all over again. When the utility bills came, I paid them quietly before anyone noticed. Ethan had enough on his shoulders, I told myself. Even when the house filled with laughter that wasn't mine, I stayed in the background, happy to hear life moving forward. That's what mothers do, isn't it? Stay behind the curtain, keep the lights on, make sure everyone else looks good on stage. But as I sat there now in a home that no longer felt like mine, I realized something I'd never said aloud. The giving never stopped. It just changed hands. And I was the last one who hadn't learned how to take. The doorbell rang just after 10. I was still in my robe sipping coffee at the kitchen table. Through the window, I saw a woman in a blazer holding a clipboard and a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning," she said when I opened the door halfway. "I'm here for the property walkthrough." The what before? I could say more. Brittany appeared behind me, all sunshine and perfume. "Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention it, Marla. It's just for insurance. Routine stuff." The woman's smile flickered. "Yes, just verifying square footage." Brittany led her through the living room, like she was hosting an open house, rattling off details about the kitchen upgrades Ethan had done last summer. I followed them at a distance, feeling smaller with every step. When the realtor measured the hallway, she asked, "So you'll be listing by winter?" Ethan cleared his throat. "We're still deciding." I watched his face, but he didn't look at me. He stared at the wall at anything but me. When they left, Brittany closed the door and clapped her hands. See, quick and painless. Insurance, I said quietly. Exactly. Her tone was light rehearsed. You don't need to worry about it. She went upstairs humming. Ethan slipped into his office and shut the door. The house fell silent again. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air felt heavy, thick with words unsaid. I got up and stood in the hallway, leaning on my cane. Light spilled faintly from beneath their door. Voices. It's not like she's staying much longer, Brittany whispered. Ethan's reply came low. Once she's in the facility, we can list it before winter. The market's still strong. A pause. Then the soft clink of glasses. By Christmas, everything will be settled, she said. I turned away, every breath tight in my chest. Back in my room, I sat on the bed, staring at the dark. I thought of Harold's hands laying the first brick of this house of all the nights I'd tucked Ethan into these walls. They were selling the home I built, and I realized they had already started. By morning, the walls felt too close. The air itself seemed to whisper. I grabbed my keys and coat and walked out before anyone could ask where I was going. The drive to Linda's house took less than 20 minutes, but my hands trembled the entire way. The roads looked the same as they always had, maple trees bowing over cracked pavement, but I barely noticed the colors. I just needed to see someone who still remembered me before all this. Linda opened the door before I even knocked. Marla Jensen, she said softly, her voice both surprise and concern. You look pale as a ghost. I tried to smile, failed, and stepped into the warmth of her kitchen. It smelled faintly of cinnamon and laundry soap. Safe, familiar. She poured tea without asking. We sat at the same oak table where we'd once graded papers together, laughing over students' essays. Now my hands shook so badly, I had to steady the cup with both palms. They're selling the house, Linda, I said finally. They're planning to put me in a home. My things are gone. Linda didn't gasp. She didn't look shocked. She just sighed like she'd expected this moment for years. Oh, honey, she said, reaching across the table to rest her hand on mine. You told me once your lawyer made sure you had protection when you gave them the deed. Conditions, wasn't it? I blinked. The papers? The clause? Her eyes met mine, sharp as ever. Find them. The words settled somewhere deep, steadier than comfort. I stayed another hour, long enough for her to make sandwiches I couldn't finish. When I left, she walked me to the door and hugged me tight. You're not as powerless as you feel, she whispered. The drive home was quieter. My pulse still raced, but for the first time in weeks, my mind was clear. When I turned into the driveway, Ethan's car was gone. The house stood still, watching me. I went inside, locked the door behind me, and headed straight for the hall closet where the lockbox waited. The lockbox was heavier than I remembered. Dust clung to its corners, the metal cool beneath my fingers. I hadn't opened it since Harold's funeral. Back then, it held our life birth certificates, insurance papers, a few savings bonds we never cashed. Now, it felt like it might hold something more. My hands shook as I turned the key. The hinges creaked, and a faint scent of old paper rose up, sharp and familiar. Inside, under a stack of brittle envelopes and yellowing documents, was the folder I'd almost forgotten: property transfer. Jensen residence. I pulled it out slowly, afraid of what I might find or not find. The papers were crisp, despite the years sealed in plastic sleeves. And there it was, near the back, the notarized addendum. My signature, Ethan's, and the lawyer's embossed seal pressed into the corner. Clause 9B. I traced it with my finger as I read aloud. In the event that the grantor Marla Jensen is removed, pressured to vacate, or otherwise displaced from the property ownership, shall automatically revert to the grantor effective upon written notice of breach. Harold's voice echoed faintly in memory. Always protect your name, Marla. Paper remembers when people forget. I folded the document neatly and placed it on the kitchen table. My heart was pounding, but the fear was gone. Only clarity remained. The phone sat beside me. I hadn't called my lawyer, Martin Cole, in over a decade, but I still had his number written inside my old address book. When he answered, his voice was the same, steady, precise. "Marla, my goodness, it's been a long time." "It has," I said. "I need to activate a clause. The one on the Jensen deed. It's time." A pause. Papers rustled faintly through the receiver. "You still have the original copy?" he asked. "I do." His voice softened. "Then I'll take care of the rest." When I hung up, the house felt lighter, almost listening. For the first time in months, I exhaled without shaking. I folded the addendum back into its sleeve and waited for morning to come. The envelope was on the table when Ethan came down for coffee. I had placed it where I knew he'd see it first, beside the sugar jar, folded neatly, sealed in crisp white. He paused when he saw it. "What's this?" he asked, already opening it. I didn't answer. I was sitting in my chair by the window, watching the sparrows peck at the feeder. He read in silence. The words didn't need explanation. "Notice of title reversion. Due to breach of occupancy agreement. Effective immediately." I didn't look at him. Not when his voice faltered. Not when he muttered my name like he didn't know it. "Mom? What is this? What is this?" I sipped my tea. "It's exactly what it says." He stood there holding the paper like it had burned him. "You can't be serious." "We had an agreement. I'm enforcing it." He looked around the kitchen like the walls might step in to defend him. "This is our home now. Brittany and I, this is our life. And you were about to sell it behind my back." His mouth opened, then shut. I stood, slowly walked to the hallway, and opened the front door. "You have 10 days. After that, you're trespassing." Brittany was the first to lose control. "This is insane," she shouted, her voice cracking as she slammed a drawer shut. "You don't get to do this, Marla. You gave us this house." Ethan stood in the middle of the room, pale arms half raised, like he wanted to fix something, but didn't know where to begin. "Mom," he said, quieter. "Please, let's talk about this. Just slow down." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. "You have 10 days to move out. If you're gone by then, I won't involve anyone else." Brittany's eyes widened. "You mean the police? You'd have your own son arrested. I mean, I won't file for damages." She laughed bitterly, her hands flying to her hips. "Unbelievable." Ethan stepped closer. "Why now? Why are you doing this?" I looked at him for a long moment. Not at the man he was pretending to be, but at the boy I'd once held during thunderstorms. "No more questions," I said. "You broke the agreement. That's all anyone needs to know." I turned and walked to the front door, unlocking it without a word. Behind me, I heard Brittany mutter something under her breath. Ethan didn't respond. I stood there holding the door open, the cold air brushing past me like it had been waiting too. After a long minute, Ethan picked up one of the bags and started down the steps. They came back and forth for the next few days, never at the same time. Brittany avoided eye contact. Ethan barely spoke. I offered no help, no warmth, no argument. Just space. On the 9th day, the last box disappeared. I locked the door myself and drew the curtains closed. Then I made tea, carried it to the porch, and sat down slowly. The sky was soft with early fall, and I could finally hear my own breath. A month later, I sat on the porch with a fresh cup of coffee and a blanket across my lap. The birds still came, same as always. The wind carried the scent of pine and distant chimney smoke. No shouting, no closed doors, no voices behind walls. Just stillness. I'd rearranged the bedroom the way I liked it, put the quilt back at the foot of the bed, refolded the sweaters that had been crammed into boxes. My winter coat hung by the door again, right where it belonged. In the evenings, I played music, quietly. Old records. Harold loved. Sometimes I danced alone barefoot on the rug, Not because I was happy, but because I could. Mrs. Penfield from 2 doors down stopped by that Sunday with a basket of pears. She hadn't knocked in years, said she didn't want to interrupt the new folks. "They're gone," I said gently, and she smiled. "Then I guess it's safe to visit again." I baked her a pie that afternoon, sat across the kitchen from her like we used to, talking about the neighborhood the way it used to be. She left before sunset. I sent her home with the last slice. That night, I lit the small candle on the mantel and stood beside it with my hands folded, not in grief, not in prayer, just presence. The silence in the house no longer a warning. It was mine again. All of it. The floorboards that creaked in the same places. The pantry where I fell. The closet I once stood in, trembling. Now I moved through each room with ease, with ownership. And in the kitchen drawer, the deed sat quietly under the spoons, folded, undisturbed. I hadn't told anyone about the clause. Not Linda. Not even Martin, beyond the necessary steps. Some things didn't need to be explained. Some things just needed to be kept. That evening I opened the front door one last time and watched the sky turn soft behind the trees. Then I stepped inside and closed it,